Murder charges against Adnan Syed dropped. He will not be tried again.
Justice delayed is justice denied.
But victim Heyman Lee's family says they've been denied justice.
The feeling now is that this is done and that, no justice is going to be done for Hay.
What Lee's family is planning, what comes next for Syed, and the renewed search for a killer. A call to action for Mervo parents, but school police push back on a volunteer program that enlists family members to help keep students safe. A girls' trip to Vegas turns into a nightmare. Two sisters from Maryland stabbed in the attack on the Strip last week. Tonight, their family provides an update on the recovery.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 10.
He is elated. He is joyful. He is still processing this. I mean, I think you can imagine there have been so many ups and downs over the past 23 years. So he is really just taking it all in.
Well, tonight, Adnan Syed is free. His name known across the world thanks to the hit podcast Serial. After 2 decades in jail, prosecutors say new DNA tests have vindicated him. Good evening, everybody. I'm Mary Bubala.
And I'm Kai Jackson. Syed was only a teen when his former Woodlawn High School girlfriend was killed. Now, he's maintained his innocence ever since that time. Today, he's a free man. But
there are still many questions remaining. Who killed Heyman Lee? What is next for Syed after his name is cleared? And what is next for the Lee family? We have team coverage Mackenzie Frost digging into questions over Marilyn Mosby's motives and timing for requesting the conviction be vacated.
First, Jeff Abel looks into some of the lingering questions tonight. Jeff?
Well, while prosecutors insist their pursuit of justice is not over yet, it is a hard sell for the victim's family, who insist they have been victimized again. After 22 years in prison, Adnan Syed received an apology today and a dismissal of the murder charge that had put him away for life.
This morning, I instructed my office to dismiss the criminal case against Adnan Syed following the completion of a second round of touch DNA testing of items that were never tested before.
They're having a really hard time understanding all of this.
Today, attorney Steve Kelly delivered the news to the family of victim Heyman Lee. Like they got no justice.
Well, they feel like they were shut out of the process.
It was 23 years ago when Heyman Lee was strangled to death, her body buried in Leakin Park.
The whisper inside the hallways.
When police arrested her high school boyfriend, Adnan Syed, there was relief from the victim's family.
We feel a lot better. I just want to see justice done for what he done to my sister.
But now, 23 years later, the victim's family feels victimized again.
Case is over.
They're appealing a judge's decision last month to vacate the charges, alleging prosecutors failed to adequately notify them about their right to testify in the hearing that led to Syed's release from prison.
Nobody really wanted to hear from this family because they just didn't want. There's no one else who had standing to raise questions about this. And the only person is the victim, and if you can shut the victim out of this process, then you can make this process run more smoothly.
I think it's unfortunate that, you have certain attorneys that try to exploit families. And so I think that's what's happening in this case.
State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby is standing behind her office's handling of the case and says she's appointing a new prosecutor to probe 2 other suspects in the case. But the family of Heyman Lee is losing hope.
Are my clients confident that this demonstrates innocence? No, they're not, because they still have questions about innocence.
What do they want now?
I think that, as I said, they have little hope of prosecution.
With the case dismissed, it's still unclear whether the victim's appeal of last month's hearing will be dismissed too. After 23 years, the victim of Heyman Lee is fighting for justice again.
If this kind of conduct is allowed to continue, then years and years of gains in terms of victims' rights will be erased.
So what's next for Adnan Syed? His attorneys plan to file a motion to certify his innocence, and he plans to pursue a higher education. And his attorneys say he hasn't ruled out becoming an attorney himself. We're live tonight. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
Jeff, thank you. Well, Maryland Attorney General Brian Frosh has joined the victim's family in efforts to put Adnan Syed's case on hold. Frosh argues Judge Finn violated the family's rights by not allowing Lee's brother to testify in person. The family was given less than one business day to make it to Baltimore after Marilyn Mosby decided to move ahead and vacate Syed's conviction. Fox 45 News has reached out to Frosh regarding today's development. His office replied, quote, "No comment."
Now, the timing of the decision to free Adnan Syed by City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby and also obviously Judge Finn is turning heads. Mosby is currently wrapping up her final term in office. Mackenzie Frost looks at the politics involved in the case.
The public first learned about Marilyn Mosby's intent to vacate the murder conviction of Adnan Syed the day before the jury selection was slated to begin in her own federal fraud and perjury trial. Now experts say that federal trial could be at play again in this case. Adnan Syed walking out of a Baltimore City courthouse just days after Marilyn Mosby walked into a federal courtroom, hours before jury selection began in her own trial. Fox 45 News asking Mosby then if her decision to vacate Syed's murder conviction was related to her own fate.
Ms. Mosby, was the Syed case a distraction from you for this personal matter?
Mosby not answering. Now Syed officially free after Mosby made the decision to drop the charges.
This is an attempt by Marilyn Mosby to gain favor with Marylanders.
Jeremy Eldridge, a current defense attorney and former prosecutor in the state's attorney's office, not involved in this case, but says Mosby's move to drop the charges could be still rooted in thinking about what's best for her, even though her federal perjury and fraud trial was delayed until March 2023.
It makes you ask one big question, which is this why it took so long? Were you waiting to play this card? Were you always intending on doing this for Adnan Syed, but waiting until the opportune time politically, the opportune time with regard to your own federal prosecution?
As Mosby prepares to leave office after losing her primary for a third term and possibly federal prison time looming over her head, her own defense attorney says she needs to make some money.
She's got a family. She's lost an election. She needs income after January 6th, as you all well know. She's lost the election. She certainly wants to move on with her life.
And Eldred says Mosby could be looking to this case as a way to score some points and find a way to leave office in January with large support. Since Syed's case is so high profile, Mosby's move capturing national attention. Eldridge says playing this card now, freeing Syed, could all be an attempt to get a better outcome for herself.
We reached out to the presumptive next state's attorney in Baltimore City, Ivan Bates, to see if he had a comment about this latest news involving the Syed case, but so far, we haven't heard back. In Baltimore, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
That brings us to our question of the day. Why were charges against Adnan Syed dropped? Do you believe it was the correct decision? Politics, both, or neither? So far, 75% of those who voted say politics. We'd like to hear from you. Go to foxbaltimore.com/vote to weigh in.
Well, tonight, Councilwoman Odette Ramos is urging volunteers to join a program to help keep Mervo students safe going to and from school.
But safety experts are skeptical. Fox 45's Keith Daniels is live with this story. Keith?
Well, the Councilwoman says it's all about comforting the students and looking out for their safety. But tonight, from one key opponent, that only sounds good in theory. Baltimore City Councilwoman Odette Ramos, outspoken and active, but now pushback on a program.
It's a positive thing, and it's a way to get community engaged.
Supported by the vocal city leader. In a recent letter to constituents, Ramos is urging residents to volunteer for a community watch program at Mervo High School. Volunteers to greet students at the beginning of the day, keep a watchful eye to ensure they're safe, and at dismissal, help students feel safe.
This is a great initiative that the Principal Lawrence has put together, and we need volunteers.
But Sergeant Clyde Boatwright, president of the City Schools Police Union,
who's going to provide safety for the volunteers,
believes the councilwoman's call for volunteers could be treading tricky water.
Look, and we get it. We want alumni and we want community members to be engaged in our with the schools. As the police department, we encourage that. But we got to be careful that we're not sending people into harm's way.
Our school police at Mervo are phenomenal. They are the ones that are protecting our students. Well, they can't be everywhere. We need more eyes and ears on the streets. That's all it is.
But Boatwright calls Mervo one of the city's, quote, hot schools, where school police officers are dispatched almost daily to quell the disorder, including 6 fights Thursday, one of which police say included a parent being let in by a student. That parent now charged. And last month, a student shot and killed on a parking lot. The suspect, another city school student, tracked down and caught by school police officers.
If we have volunteers here that day, they were all potential victims. When you have a person that has a firearm.
Still, calling all volunteers.
Again, residents who want to go through this and help us out will go through, and I'll be included, we'll go through a training so that folks know what they can and can't do, so that they're also not, know what to look for and to say, oh no, this is a school police thing. This is more eyes and ears on the street is a good thing.
Well, Boatwright says he's not aware of school police being involved in the talks about this program. He said tonight he's open to talking more about his safety concerns. We're live tonight. Keith Daniels, Fox 45 News.
All right, Keith, thank you. We're tracking the next weather maker set to impact our region on Thursday. You're looking at live pictures outside Baltimore and Towson, and we are keeping an eye on storms for Thursday and what could be a washout.
You can see him there on the radar. Chief Meteorologist Jonathan Myers here with the latest on this forecast. This rain moving our way, although we've had so many nice days.
We can't complain too much. I mean, just gorgeous weather up until tomorrow. And then we fast forward the future scan to tomorrow night, because that's when things start getting a little more active around here. Notice some of that rain already heading our way as we take a close-up look up toward Carroll County and back down toward Montgomery County at about 5:15. So 70 starts as a mess on Thursday by 8 a.m. here in the city. On and off heavy rain through about 9:45, 10 o'clock. And take a look at this. Even a level 105 or marginal risk of severe weather moving our way into the afternoon on Thursday, with a final line of showers and potentially some thunderstorms moving in. Coming up in just a couple of minutes, I'm going to take you all the way through tomorrow morning's commute, and I'm going to let you know how warm it stays until this next weather maker gets here. That's coming up in my Weather Authority forecast.
All right, Jonathan, thank you. You can access the latest information when severe weather hits on your mobile phone. Download the Fox 45 weather app. Search for WBFF in your app store.
Next on Fox 45 News at 10, a family trip to Las Vegas turns to tragedy. Two sisters wounded in an attack on the Strip are from Maryland. Their recovery as another survivor shares the fear everyone felt. New video of a police shooting sheds light on what happened in the final moments before officers opened fire on a Prince George's County man, killing him, where the investigation stands tonight. And a crisis of vacant homes across Baltimore. Tonight, a new bill is being considered to take action against owners. How steep fines could get with each 311 call. New tonight, Baltimore City Schools has parted ways with a staff member accused of helping students attack another student who's a refugee from Afghanistan. This happened 3 weeks ago at Baltimore City's Academy for College and Career Exploration. The Council on American Islamic Relations says the staff member locked the students inside a bathroom while they beat and stripped the 16-year-old of her hijab. On top of letting that staff member go, City School says it has disciplined the other students involved.
We're seeing the moments before officers with Riverdale Park Police shot and killed a man 3 weeks ago in Prince George's County, and we do have a warning for you. Some of the footage you're about to see is disturbing.
Sir, stay down here for me. Hey, stay down here. Stay down here. Come on. Go.
Well, the Maryland Attorney General's office released this video today. They say officers were responding to a call of a suicidal man with access to firearms. After they arrived, they spent several minutes speaking with 75-year-old Brian Couple at the front door of his home. Police say Couple walked to his bedroom and ignored officers' instructions to stop. Police claim he pointed a gun at them when they followed him. One officer opened fire, killing Couple.
Well, what started as a girls' trip to Las Vegas turns into a nightmare for a Baltimore County family. Fox 45 News has learned two sisters from Middle River are among the victims hurt in last week's stabbing attack on the Las Vegas Strip. Gabby and Cassie Hughes are among 6 people injured. 2 others were killed in this attack. Fox 45's Amy Simpson has more on the ordeal the family is now going through.
The family declining to speak on camera after this attack last Thursday, but the girl's aunt telling me this was a mom and 2 daughters on vacation before things took a shocking and scary turn. Tourists now traumatized, both in their early 20s. A pair of sisters from Middle River now recovering after a seemingly unprovoked stabbing spree on the Las Vegas Strip.
We're learning more about 2 of the survivors who are sisters visiting from Maryland.
21-year-old Cassie and 24-year-old Gabby, both engaged to be married. Gabby planning a wedding sometime next year. The girl's aunt telling Fox 45 News Cassie has been discharged from the hospital but remains in Vegas, traumatized and afraid. Her older sister Gabby still in the ICU after a surgery yesterday, but off of a ventilator. Meanwhile, their mom Beth is a nurse here in Baltimore, apparently immediately jumping into nurse mode with her own daughter's wounds, applying pressure, telling family she's never seen so much blood in her life. Another of the 6 injured victims describing what she saw last Thursday.
I just started screaming he has a knife and I ran as fast as I could.
Neighbors of the Hughes family also declining to speak today. Some of them shocked to hear what happened to these women in Vegas, saying they watched the sisters grow up on this quiet cul-de-sac in Middle River. The stabbing attack happened just 1 day after the FBI released a new report on nationwide crime stats. According to the FBI, crime trends held mostly consistent in 2021 after a rise during the pandemic in 2020. In 2021, the FBI's data showing a 4.3% increase in murders and an 8.9% decrease in robberies. But that data not showing the whole picture, as nearly 40% of law enforcement agencies did not share their crime stats, including large cities like New York, LA, and Miami.
We want to extend our heartfelt condolences to the families.
Meanwhile, the suspect in this stabbing attack on the Vegas Strip, 32-year-old Yoni Barrios, back in court today, facing murder and attempted murder charges. Also appointed a public defender. That lawyer saying he has concerns about the suspect's competency. And so far, a fundraising page for these Middle River sisters has raised more than $16,000. We've linked you to that GoFundMe on foxbaltimore.com. Amy Simpson, Fox 45 News.
There is turmoil in the nation's second largest city. Today, President Biden called on 3 members of the Los Angeles City Council to step down.
This comes after the council president was heard on a leaked audio using racial slurs against the son of another council member. The comments by Council President Nury Martinez were made last year, but they just surfaced. She has apologized and stepped down as council president, but she is refusing to resign.
Now you're looking at live pictures from Times Square in New York City, where guns will be banned in that area. Mayor Eric Adams signed 2 gun laws today. The laws ban concealed carry permit holders from bringing their weapons into sensitive locations in Times Square. The mayor says his decision is meant to keep the city safe after a Supreme Court decision overturned New York's gun laws.
We're not going to live in fear, and we're going to make sure we create an environment where those who visit the city, such as Times Square, won't have to be paralyzed with the fear of knowing that someone is carrying a gun in this area.
This and similar laws face challenges. Last week, a federal judge ruled that parts of New York's Concealed Carry Improvement Act, passed by state legislators, is unconstitutional.
Angela Lansbury, the star of Murder, She Wrote and the beloved Mrs. Potts in The Beauty and the Beast, has died. Lansbury won 5 Tony Awards during her legendary career and a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences in 2013. Her family released a statement saying she died peacefully in her sleep at her home in Los Angeles. Angela Lansbury was 96 years old. Well, King Charles III will be crowned in May at Westminster Abbey. The coronation will come 8 months after the death of Queen Elizabeth, who was the longest ruling monarch in British history. Charles' ceremony is expected to be shorter and less extravagant than his mother's in 1953.
Another round of resistance for President Biden's student loan forgiveness plan. I'm Christine Frizzell with a look at the details of a new lawsuit.
Potential job loss on the horizon, the warning from one of the nation's largest banks as the Federal Reserve fights inflation.
And on top of tracking some rain, we're also tracking a nice commute for tomorrow morning. It's still going to be on the cool side in the 50s, rising to right around 60 by 10 a.m. Actually, it's a mild day by tomorrow afternoon. There's that rain, some of those storms on Thursday, Friday. It's back to cooler, drier weather. But on Thursday, there is a 1 out of 5 marginal risk of severe weather. I'm going to let you know hour by hour the approach of that rain, and got your foliage forecast plus your 7-day in a couple of minutes.
Well, new questions tonight over the fate of President Biden's loan forgiveness program.
That's right. 6 states have filed a lawsuit against the Biden administration. National correspondent Christine Frizzell has details.
For more than 40 million students across America, President Biden says his plan is about helping them crawl out from under their mountain of debt.
To get on top of their rent and their utilities, to finally think about buying a home or starting a family or starting a business.
It includes canceling up to $20,000 in student loan debt for Pell Grant recipients and up to $10,000 for other borrowers, as long as annual income falls below $125,000 for individuals and $250,000 for families.
It's going to be nurses and truck drivers, nail technicians, and millions of people who were not able to finish their degrees.
But in the weeks that followed the announcement, 6 Republican-led states filed a lawsuit against it, arguing canceling the debt will negatively impact state revenue and that the White House is overstepping its authority since Congress has the power of the purse.
You're helping a relatively privileged part of the population at the expense of others that don't go, others that have paid off their debts.
The newest lawsuit comes from the Job Creators Network, which focuses on the way the proposal came about without any input from the public.
This is a program that is going to impact every single American in this country. And therefore, all Americans should have the opportunity to provide their input.
Elaine Parker says her group agrees with the Democrats that Americans drowning in student loan debt need a break, but warns the Biden administration's program gives colleges and universities a free pass to keep raising tuition at an exorbitant rate.
This is an inflationary program that is going to continue with the skyrocketing inflation that is hurting our small business community, that's hurting all Americans.
But the White House is insisting many of those hurting will be helped by this plan, especially since the pandemic-related pause on student loan repayment will expire at the end of this year. In Washington, I'm Christine Frizzell.
How well students do in Montgomery County could depend on their race. The new audit on racial disparities throughout the school system.
As world economies deal with rising costs and inflation, what's in store for next year? Well, the news apparently is not good.
The debates, the campaign ads, they're all meant to convince voters. Are they working? And what'll matter most just 1 month from now on Election Day? I'm Scott Thuman in Washington to show you next.
It is 10:30, and we are following three big stories tonight. We are now 4 weeks out from what could be a consequential midterm election. The issues heading into November and predictions about which party could get control of the power.
Now, an audit finds racial disparities inside Montgomery County Public Schools. We have details and why some say the audit is meaningless.
Crime is rising in our nation at a time when officers are leaving the job. Tonight, we investigate what's happening and what it could take to retain officers. Thank you for staying with us. I'm Mary Bubala.
And I'm Kai Jackson. The balance of power is up for grabs in Washington, D.C. and Congress, also right here in Maryland. In fact, next month, voters in Maryland will decide on critical races, including a new governor, a new comptroller, and a new attorney general. There are a number of local decisions that we'll be making, from county executives to term limits. On the national front, this election will determine the fate of abortion in a number of states as well.
Sinclair Chief Political Correspondent Scott Thuman has the road to November.
This is the Ohio Senate debate.
It's debate season, and for those who like a dose of drama in their politics, there is no shortage, like in the highly contentious Ohio Senate race.
When you have guys like J.D. Vance who can't stand up to anybody, Donald Trump said to J.D. Vance, all you do is kiss my ass to get my support.
Tim Ryan, who runs all these TV commercials saying that he wants to appeal to Trump voters, wants to appeal to Republicans, also says that he wants to kill and confront, what is it, the MAGA movement, Tim?
And separating the sides, divisive wedge issues. According to one breakdown by Axios, Democrats are spending millions of dollars on ads to galvanize voters upset about eroding abortion rights. Though Senator Bernie Sanders warns campaigning mostly on abortion would be a mistake, and Democrats have to fight Republican narratives that the left is dangerous for the economy. While President Biden suggests any gains will be lost if Democrats lose at the polls.
If Republicans take control of the Congress, these historic victories we just won for the American people are going to be taken away.
Republicans, meanwhile, highlighting a nationwide surge in crime, taking to the airwaves to paint Democrats as soft.
The bad guys belong in jail, and Mandela Barnes belongs nowhere near the Senate.
A risk Republicans allege to all Americans' safety. As it stands right now, Democrats have the power on the Hill. In the House, it is narrow, and many analysts, like those over at Real Clear Politics, show Republicans will change that these midterms. The Senate, though, it's a much different story. There are at least 10 races you see here across the country that are considered battlegrounds. Now, currently, the Senate is split down the middle, 50-50. And while there is polling showing the GOP in position to take that chamber too, others show Democrats holding on all of it, setting the stage for a nail-biter just 1 month from now. On Capitol Hill, I'm Scott Thuman.
Well, Vice President Kamala Harris is praising the Biden administration's move to pardon all people convicted of a federal crime for simple possession of marijuana.
I strongly believe, and the majority of Americans agree, nobody should have to go to jail for smoking weed, right? Yeah.
Well, this is a reversal for Harris, who fought ballot measures for legalizing recreational marijuana while she was a senator in California. In Maryland, voters will have the opportunity to decide if they want recreational cannabis to become legal. Recent polls suggest it could pass by a large margin. According to a recent Goucher College poll, support for the ballot measure was 59%. 34% of people would vote against it, and 7% are undecided.
Ballot drop boxes are now in place and ready for you to cast your vote. The Maryland Board of Elections saying 281 drop boxes for the midterms have now been installed. They will be available through November 8th at 8 p.m. Voters who request mail-in ballots have the option of either dropping them in one of the boxes or sending them through the mail. You have until November 1st to request a mail-in ballot.
Be sure to check out the FOX45 voter guide for key dates and races, plus all of our reporting on the upcoming general election. Head to our website, foxbaltimore.com/vote2022.
Making headlines now, Prince George's County curfew for young people will be extended until the end of the year. The original month-long curfew was set to expire tomorrow, but county leaders said the curfew has been effective in reducing crime. During that period, the county saw a 47% dip in homicides and a 20% drop in crime overall. While only 4 children have been stopped, authorities believe enforcement has adults taking more of an active role, as they would face fines if their children are repeatedly caught.
And I hope that the focus of this curfew will again be to give new tools to our parents and our community leaders and all of our officers as we seek to protect our children.
As it stands, children 16 and under are required to be inside by 10 on weeknights and midnight on weekends. County leaders say they will reevaluate around the holidays. Baltimore has a curfew for young people, but it is not being enforced.
There are apparently huge gaps in learning and racial disparities. That's the finding of a new audit of Montgomery County Public Schools.
The report found many families are not satisfied with the school system.
The county also has a huge gap in learning, especially in math, where 64% of Asian fifth graders are proficient, but only 22% of black students are proficient. The audit took 2 years to conduct. It was a packed room today as the results were outlined. Parents and activists applauded the audit, but still have concerns.
So we can be happy about it, that the audit was done, but we're also here about accountability.
If MCPS invests tons of money on programs, but black, brown, and poor children cannot access them, does it really make a difference?
Well, the audit made a number of recommendations, including improving hiring of diverse teachers and leaders, more training for staff on racial equality issues. The board says it'll take until about March to come up with an action plan.
Baltimore City Council taking up a bill on vacant buildings. The bill calls for increasing fines on vacant properties based on 311 complaints. If a vacant has multiple complaints within a 12-month period, a fine will be imposed for each inspection. The fine started at $100, but they gradually increase to up to $1,000. The goal is to incentivize vacant property owners to quickly address the climbing complaints on their aging properties. Councilwoman Odette Ramos is a big supporter of the bill. She says even if the fines are not paid, this will still create a much-needed solution.
And again, the goal for me isn't an expectation that they're going to be paid. The goal for me is how can we make sure that some of these properties that are not in-rem eligible can be in-rem eligible quicker so that we can start the process of moving properties.
The Department of Housing and Community Development isn't entirely on board. They say implementing this would require IT upgrades to the current 311 system, as well as more staff to monitor and track the new fee schedule. They claim the IT upgrades would alone cost at least $140,000 and another $50,000 each year.
Additional 311 calls aren't going to get them to that point any faster. Where it falls short is really the resources in the market to be able to move more properties faster.
The bill will go in front of another committee hearing before the council votes on it.
The Federal Reserve's fight to tame inflation will result in tens of thousands of lost jobs. That's a warning coming from Bank of America, telling clients in a report last Friday that it will translate to a loss of about 175,000 jobs per month. Interest rate hikes will take their toll, the bank believes. Other bankers are saying the same thing, apparently. Bank of America is projecting the unemployment rate to peak at about 5.5% over the next year. It dropped to 3.5% last month, the lowest level since 1969. Well, the International Monetary Fund anticipates next year will feel like a recession for millions around the world. In its economic outlook, the IMF predicts global growth will slow to 2.7% next year. That's down from the 2.9% it estimated in July. The organization says this is the weakest growth since 2001, aside from the global financial crisis and the peak of COVID-19. Experts say three issues are creating a, quote, volatile period. That includes Russia's invasion of Ukraine, inflation, and China's economic slowdown.
Well, more and more police officers leaving the profession. A look at the situation around the nation and the struggle to restore safety on American streets.
It's that time of year for college basketball. The major changes in College Park this season.
Ahead on the late edition, City Council members draft a new safety plan after another violent incident at Mervo High School. Why safety experts are casting doubts.
And dry skies last overnight into the morning commute. Tomorrow, temperatures in the upper 40s to around 50, so not as chilly, but still crisp. We'll let you know when rain is going to ruin your commuting, though. That's up in my Weather Authority forecast hour by hour after the break.
Well, we are tracking the tropics tonight as the death toll from Julia rises across Central America. Right now, the storm is said to have already claimed the lives of 25 people in El Salvador, Honduras, and Guatemala. Julia is expected to continue to weaken, but still bring the threat of flash floods and mudslides across Central America and southern Mexico. Well, nearly 2 weeks after Hurricane Ian, major search and rescue efforts in the region are now complete. On your left, Maryland first responders who rushed to the state to help recovery efforts returned home this afternoon. They are part of crews from all over who assisted. Right now, many are still returning home, some to utter devastation and loss.
I lost my home, lost my job, nowhere to stay. I'm living in a tent.
As recovery efforts continue, concerns are growing about crime and looting in the region. Local officials say they have made more than a dozen arrests since the storm hit. Well, we are tracking the next weather maker set to impact our region on Thursday. You're looking at live pictures outside Baltimore and Towson. We're also keeping an eye on storms for Thursday and what could be a washout. Chief Meteorologist Jonathan Myers here with the latest on our forecast for us. Jonathan?
Yeah, and Mary, for now, it's a calm before the storm. Temperature at 61 with clear skies. The Toyota issued a Harbor Skycam looking good. We're back down into the upper 40s to around 50 by tomorrow morning. But take a look at all that rain that's out to our west. Tomorrow's a dry day. The clouds increase, but then the showers and the thunderstorms move in. So it's a nice beginning to our Wednesday with some sunshine. Again, temperatures about 45 to 50. During the afternoon, we're back into the 70s likely, but the clouds will increase as this next system, you see it there, it's a cold front, that next weather maker. It's going to have the rain and potentially some embedded stronger storms as well. And that starts moving eastbound as we head into tomorrow. And then eventually looks like it gets to us by Thursday. And Thursday's an on and off rain day, I'm thinking. You'll see that on the future scan hour by hour in a moment. But also during the afternoon, potentially there could be a couple of stronger storms, too. There's a level 1 out of 5 or marginal risk of severe weather for Wednesday after, or I should say Thursday afternoon after a dry Wednesday. Now, kind of looks like a bee's nest of a track here down in the tropics. We spoke about Julia. Well, this is actually an offshoot of Julia's moisture and energy, kind of cut off, if you will, right around southeast of the Yucatan Peninsula and then emerged through the Yucatan and on the other side into the Bay of Campeche in the past 24 hours. And look, we now have Carl, winds at 40 miles an hour, and that looks like it's going to be heading toward eastern Mexico the next several days, maybe some more flooding out of that. Now, around here, again, nice and quiet overnight, but the approach to the next weather maker does introduce some clouds into tomorrow. I think highs about 70 to 75 once again. And here comes the rain. 6 a.m. on Thursday, 9 a.m. Thursday, messy. By noontime, a little break, and then maybe some stronger storms as we head into perhaps, I'd say, Thursday, midday and afternoon, especially during the p.m. commute. Looks like it could get ugly again. 47 degrees. Clear for tonight, 72 tomorrow. One more mild and dry day. Their fall foliage this weekend's looking great, and I think Saturday is going to be the day to see. We've got some partial color, some near peak as you head up towards the mountains. Low 70s for Wednesday, Thursday. Thursday's that rough day. Friday, Saturday, drying out. Sunday, Ravens game, not at home, but some showers, 71. And then much cooler into next week. Maybe some scattered showers come Tuesday into Wednesday. And by the way, some of the areas north and west in the highest elevations could even see the first flakes of the season. I've got a brand new article on our website, foxbaltimore.com. Go ahead and search for that, and you can learn all about the potential of some of that white stuff falling around here next week.
Well, cities across the country, Baltimore included, are losing police officers like never before. To fill those crucial gaps, some departments are offering tens of thousands of dollars in bonuses to hire the next men and women in uniform. But what will it take to address why officers are leaving? Spotlight on America correspondent Chris Daniels reports from Los Angeles.
Stroll down the Walk of Fame in the City of Stars, Hollywood, California, and you'll find restaurant owner Tim Ratcliffe.
And you're right in the middle of it all, Hollywood and La Brea. Yeah, it's probably the busiest corner in Hollywood.
His small corner of this city is also now a flashpoint for a larger discussion about crime and policing in America.
Tim, what happened here? Well, I was actually sitting down right here at the table to have lunch with my girlfriend, and right as I sat down, I looked over, and a homeless man had come over, and he sucker punched a 64-year-old man in the head, knocked him over.
That August day, Tim took matters into his own hands, chased and pinned down the attacker, and waited more than 10 minutes for police to get there.
So you're pinning him down on the ground here for 12 minutes waiting for police to arrive?
Yep.
The response time is so slow because there's not enough police.
What's your staffing situation like right now?
We're challenged. We've seen
Michael Moore is the chief of police in Los Angeles. He admits his department is pressed for people. He told Spotlight on America that in each of the past 2 years, his department saw about 100 more officers retire than in the past.
What has that meant for response times?
Well, it's lengthened them.
Is it true that you've had to suspend sexual assault investigations, cold case investigations?
In the sense of we reorganized the organization away from the cold case team that worked in the robbery homicide division is now being worked by reserves.
Do you believe there's a direct connection between the rise in violent crime and the lack of officers at the staffing level that you'd like?
I think it contributes to it.
It's taking longer to respond to emergency calls.
Chuck Wexler leads the Police Executive Research Forum and has studied what's driving these staffing shortages across the country. He looked at 37 states in the District of Columbia and found since the summer of 2020, police resignations went up 40% in a year. Retirements went up nearly 24%. Right now, staffing is down 6.6% in the Midwest and 4.5% in Western states.
What do you think the reason is?
The George Floyd murder was a turning point in American policing and has impacted staffing significantly.
Spotlight on America has found that major American cities are now waving big bucks in high-stakes bidding to attract the best candidates and those who understand the additional scrutiny of the profession. Seattle leads the pack, offering some candidates $30,000, with New Orleans offering the same, and others are following suit. Portland offered up $20,000, and Fairfax, Virginia offered $15,000 to every new police officer that signs. And it's not just about money. The Police Executive Research Forum found departments easing some of their long-held restrictions, from allowing tattoos to reducing some education requirements. And in Los Angeles, they're raising private money to help new officers cover their housing costs.
I didn't want him to get away.
In the short term, Tim Ratcliffe is concerned it may not be enough to keep his corner of Hollywood safe. He worries what the next film shot here may look like. For Spotlight on America, I'm Chris Daniels.
My car started losing power and shaking, pulled off to the side of the road.
And on the late edition, one man's horror story of problems at the pump, how a gas station oversight led to a major repair bill. A former LA Angels employee sentenced for his involvement in the overdose death of pitcher Tyler Skaggs in 2019. Why events of the past 2 years in prison tacked a couple of more years onto his sentence. And the Ravens are rolling on defense, but they may be without a key starter for a while. Morgan Atzett has the update ahead on Sports Unlimited.
The Ravens officially placed their best player this season on defense on the injured reserve safety Marcus Williams. Williams dislocated his wrist in the first quarter Sunday night, believed to be on that play. He's out at least 4 games. It is that time of the year when you start to look at the calendar and realize college basketball is quickly approaching major changes in College Park this upcoming season. Let's start with the obvious. On the men's side, Kevin Willard taking over for the departed Mark Turgeon. We will judge the product later, but Willard at least won, keeping a solid foundation while landing local prospects via the transfer portal.
The thing I think this team is going to do at a very high level is shoot the basketball. 1 through 5 is going to be able to shoot the basketball at some point on the court. We're going to play. I think we have the ability to play a little bit more up-tempo than I have in the past. I love the fact that everyone we brought in, everyone stayed, is a very unselfish player.
On the women's side, stability returns with head coach Brenda Freese, but she basically lost the roster, minus Diamond Miller and Cheyenne Sellers to the transfer portal after the Sweet 16 loss. She added 9 new faces for her 21st season.
Our team did a remarkable job, adding great additions like an Abby Myers here with the rest of the group that we brought in. And then you have the continuity of a Diamond Miller who's been with our program, now a senior finally. So, just that blend, but obviously you lend to the experience. These 2 terrific seniors that we have looking for their leadership all season long to guide this team.
Programs open up the new season on Monday, November 7th. The men hosting Niagara and Willard's debut. The women head to George Mason.
Morgan, thanks. Ahead on the late edition, Adnan Syed's name cleared. How a shoe was the key piece of evidence in his bid for freedom as Heyman Lee's family is left seeking justice again. Plus, how we could prevent an asteroid from hitting Earth. Some NASA scientists may have a solution with a little help from Maryland mines. Well, NASA says it is ready for whatever the universe throws at us after an historic, successful Save the World mission.
Today, NASA confirms that DART successfully changed the targeted asteroid's trajectory.
A spacecraft named DART, the size of a refrigerator, launched last year. It plowed into a harmless asteroid 2 weeks ago and shifted the asteroid's orbit. It is the first time humanity has changed the motion of a celestial body. And not only that, NASA Administrator Bill Nelson says it altered the asteroid's orbit by 32 minutes, and scientists only hope to shave off 10 minutes. The asteroid doesn't pose a threat to Earth, but this successful mission shows that a killer rock could be knocked out of the Earth's way in the future.
He is elated. He is joyful. He is still processing this.
Charges dropped against Adnan Syed after more than 2 decades in prison. What's next for him and the family of Hae-Min Lee? A city councilwoman calls for a stronger safety plan after another violent outburst at Mervo High School. Why safety experts are skeptical of parts of that plan. And a vacation turns violent as Fox 45 News learns 2 victims of a mass stabbing in Las Vegas have Maryland ties. Their aunt gives an update.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News Late Edition.
There was a DNA mixture of multiple contributors on both Miss Lee's shoes. The same multiple contributor for both of Miss Lee's shoes. And most compellingly, Adnan Syed, his DNA was excluded.
Adnan Syed's name now clear after DNA tests found no link between Syed and Hae-Min Lee. His ex-girlfriend was killed in 1999. Good evening, I'm Kai Jackson. Syed spent the last 22 years in prison, but always maintained his innocence since his conviction in 2000. But questions still persist, including what's next for Syed and who actually killed Hae-Min Lee. Jeff Abel looks into some of those lingering questions.
While prosecutors insist their pursuit of justice is not over yet, it is a hard sell for the victim's family tonight, who believes they have been victimized again. After 22 years in prison, Adnan Syed received an apology today and a dismissal of the murder charge that had put him away for life.
This morning, I instructed my office to dismiss the criminal case against Adnan Syed following the completion of a second round of touch DNA testing of items that were never tested before.
They're having a really hard time understanding all of this.
Today, attorney Steve Kelly delivered the news to the family of victim Hae-Min Lee. Like they got no justice.
Well, they feel like they were shut out of the process.
It was 23 years ago when Hae-Min Lee was strangled to death, her body buried in Leakin Park.
The whisper inside the hallways.
When police arrested her high school boyfriend, Adnan Syed, there was relief from the victim's family.
We feel a lot better. I just want to see justice done for what he done to my sister.
But now, 23 years later, the victim's family feels victimized again.
Case is over.
They're appealing a judge's decision last month to vacate the charges, alleging prosecutors failed to adequately notify them about their right to testify in the hearing that led to Syed's release from prison.
Nobody really wanted to hear from this family because they just didn't want... There's no one else who had standing to raise questions about this. And the only person is the victim, and if you can shut the victim out of this process, then you can make this process run more smoothly.
I think it's unfortunate that, you have certain attorneys that try to exploit families. And so I think that's what's happening in this case.
State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby is standing behind her office's handling of the case and says she's appointing a new prosecutor to probe 2 other suspects in the case. But the family of Hae-Min Lee is losing hope.
Are my clients confident that this demonstrates innocence? No, they're not, because they still have questions about innocence.
What do they want now?
I think that, as I said, they have little hope of prosecution.
With the case dismissed, it's still unclear whether the victim's appeal of last month's hearing will be dismissed too. After 23 years, the victim of Hae-Min Lee is fighting for justice again.
If this kind of conduct is allowed to continue, then years and years of gains in terms of victims' rights will be erased.
So what's next for Adnan Syed? His attorneys plan to file a motion certifying his innocence, and he plans to pursue a higher education. His attorneys say he has not ruled out becoming an attorney himself. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
Now, Maryland Attorney General Brian Frosh is joining the family of Hae-Min Lee in their efforts to put Syed's case on hold, though the future of an appeal is uncertain at this time with today's developments. Frosh argues the family's rights were violated when Lee's brother wasn't allowed to testify in person. The family had less than 1 business day to make it to Baltimore after City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby decided to move ahead and request Syed's convictions be vacated. Fox 45 News reached out to Frosch's office, but so far they are not commenting. New tonight, federal prosecutors are accusing City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby's defense team of trying to taint the jury pool in the upcoming trial against her. In a new motion filed today, prosecutors argue Mosby's team should not be allowed to hold news conferences in front of the courthouse, saying those are attempts to sway a potential jury. Prosecutors had previously called for a gag order after lead defense attorney A. Scott Bolden spoke about the trial on September 14th. Baltimore City Councilwoman Odette Ramos is urging volunteers to join a program to keep Mervo students safe on the way to and from school. But some experts are skeptical of that plan. Fox 45's Keith Daniels explains it.
Well, the councilwoman says it's all about comforting the students and looking out for their safety. But tonight, from one key opponent, that only sounds good in theory. Baltimore City Councilwoman Odette Ramos, outspoken and active, but now pushback on a program.
It's a positive thing, and it's a way to get community engaged.
Supported by the vocal city leader. In a recent letter to constituents, Ramos is urging residents to volunteer for a community watch program at Mervo High School. Volunteers to greet students at the beginning of the day, keep a watchful eye to ensure they're safe, and at dismissal, help students feel safe.
This is a great initiative that the Principal Lawrence has put together, and we need volunteers.
But Sergeant Clyde Boatwright, president of the City Schools Police Union,
who's going to provide safety for the volunteers,
believes the councilwoman's call for volunteers could be treading tricky water.
Look, and we get it. We want alumni and we want community members to be engaged in our with the schools. As the police department, we encourage that. But we got to be careful that we're not sending people into harm's way.
Our school police at Mervo are phenomenal. They are the ones that are protecting our students. Well, they can't be everywhere. We need more eyes and ears on the streets. That's all it is.
But Boatwright calls Mervo one of the city's, quote, hot schools, where school police officers are dispatched almost daily to quell the disorder, including 6 fights Thursday, one of which police say included a parent being let in by a student. That parent now charged. And last month, a student shot and killed on a parking lot. The suspect, another city school student, tracked down and caught by school police officers.
If we have volunteers here that day, they were all potential victims. When you have a person that has a firearm.
Still, calling all volunteers.
Again, residents who want to go through this and help us out will go through, and I'll be included, we'll go through a training so that folks know what they can and can't do, so that they're also not, know what to look for and to say, oh no, this is a school police thing. This is more eyes and ears on the street is a good thing.
Well, Boatwright says he's not aware of school police being involved in talks about that program. He said tonight he's open to talking more about his safety concerns. Reporting tonight, Keith Daniels, Fox 45 News.
Now, a Fox 45 News alert in 3, 2, 1.
A 16-year-old in Baltimore City is in the hospital right now after a shooting tonight. The shooting happened along Asquith Street near Greenmount Cemetery in East Baltimore. Police say the 16-year-old victim was walking along the street when he heard gunfire before realizing he had been shot. The shooting is currently under investigation. Anybody with information is asked to call Metro Crime Stoppers. Kai?
Mary, thank you. Problems at the pump for a Virginia man who barely made it a mile from the gas station. How 7-Eleven apparently allowed water to get into their fuel.
And beautiful fall colors beginning to take over. It's a partial color here in Baltimore, but we've got some rain. Might start to try to take some of these leaves off the trees. I'll let you know when it could get here with thunderstorms in my Weather Authority forecast.
Prosecutors make their final push for the death penalty in the case against Parkland, Florida shooter Nicholas Cruz. Cruz has pled guilty to 17 counts of murder for the 2018 massacre at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School in Florida. The prosecution says he deserves the death penalty because he showed no remorse after the shootings.
This plan was goal-directed, it was calculated, it was purposeful, and it was a systematic massacre.
A Cruz defense team argued for life in prison, citing mental illness. Well, now the jury will decide whether Cruz gets the death penalty. The man found guilty of providing drugs that killed Los Angeles pitcher Tyler Skaggs in 2019 has been given 22 years in prison. Eric Kay is a former Angels communication director. He had been facing a minimum of 20 years in prison, but prison phone calls in which he insulted Skaggs' family tacked another 2 years onto his sentence. Prince George's County is extending its youth curfew. The numbers behind the decision to tack on another 2 months. And Maryland Task Force 1 is home. The highs and lows from their incredible 11-day mission in Florida. We are learning two of the victims in a stabbing last week in Las Vegas are sisters from Middle River. Gabby and Cassie Hughes were two of the 6 survivors of the attack. 2 other people lost their lives. Now, the sisters' aunt say they were on vacation when it took a tragic turn. The girl's aunt tells Fox 45 Cassie has been discharged from the hospital, but Gabby is still in the ICU. The suspect in the attack was back in court today. He faces murder and attempted murder charges. And it turns out that man has a previous criminal record in California. The youth curfew in Prince George's County is sticking around for a little longer. The county executive reports a reduction in crime. Brad Bell from our Sinclair sister station in D.C. takes us through the data behind the decision.
Prince George's County Executive Angela Alsobrooks surprised many when she announced the curfew enforcement after the Labor Day weekend. She called it a sensible response to an outburst of murders and carjackings far too often committed by juveniles.
What we all agreed to was that we surely needed a reset.
Activists argued it would create dangerous interactions with police, but during the entire period of supposed enhanced enforcement, police logged only 4 juvenile curfew violations, and each of those teens was stopped for another reason. Still, crime did slow. Today, the county executive says she believes the curfew played a role.
We saw a 38% drop in violent crime, a 59% drop in carjackings, and a 50% drop in contact shootings.
For those reasons, Alsobrooks deciding that the curfew, which has been county law since 1995, will continue to be enforced at least through the end of the year. That means juveniles 16 and under must be home by 10 on weeknights and by midnight Friday and Saturday.
And I hope that the focus of this curfew will again be to give new tools to our parents and our community leaders and all of our officers as we seek to protect our children.
Now, Alsobrooks admits that other factors like the start of the school year or increased visibility of police could have played a role, but she does believe the curfew reduced crime, and she is reminding parents in the months ahead, if your kid is caught out too late, or especially if they're caught committing a crime after curfew, you could face a fine. Prince George's County, Brad Bell, Fox 45 News.
Man, what a beauty today. 75 degrees for a high. We've dropped off about 20 degrees from that on the Mile 1 Tallahassee Cam. Under clear skies, it's 55. Winds out of the west-southwest at about 3. Humidity 74%. Dew points, or that's the measure of moisture in the air, they're now in the mid to upper 40s. It's actually a little more moist, if you wouldn't believe it, than it was earlier today in the past couple of days. But it's still pretty comfortable, and it will be crisp into tomorrow morning. But that increase in moisture is a sign of some rain that could be to come. Temperature of 55 here in Baltimore, 56 at Bel Air, 55 Westminster. Some 40s already popping up at the foot of the Blue Ridge Mountains at Frederick, and some 40s as well at Denton, 49 degrees. Look at all this warmth ahead of our next weather maker, which is a cold front. Look at these chillier numbers. Bismarck up to Billings. We're going to stay in the warmth for tomorrow and actually even Thursday as we see rain move in with that next system. You can see all of it from Chicago to Detroit, all the way to St. Louis. And look at this line of thunderstorms sprouting up from Omaha all the way to Minneapolis. We'll see the extra clouds tomorrow beginning to accrue and increase after a nice overnight, kind of a chilly start. Temperatures generally in the 40s to near 50. It'll be warmer again than what we've seen over the past few mornings. And then for tomorrow, the clouds come in. Don't think we see the rain yet, but that next weather maker, a cold front, will move at us with rain. And look, even some embedded thunderstorms in the afternoon on Thursday. So that could prove to be some problems, not only with rain on Thursday morning, but also the thunderstorms on Thursday afternoon. And there's a 1 out of 5 risk of severe weather out of that, a marginal risk around here. Now, down in the tropics, this actually kind of an appendage, if you will, of Julia, which made its way over Central America over the weekend as a relatively weak hurricane. Made its way over to the Pacific, and some of the energy kind of split off, moved up towards the Bay of Campeche, and now we've got a tropical storm, Carl. Now, Carl looks like it's going to be a big rain producer, maybe some gusty winds, too, over eastern Mexico in the next several days through the end of the week, and maybe some of that moisture moving up towards southern Texas. Doesn't look like a big player here in terms of a major hurricane or anything like that, but flash flooding certainly a possibility down that way. Not going to be any impacts around here out of it, though. But we've got our own worries to be concerned about for Thursday. Now, through 8 a.m., we see some extra clouds moving in, especially, I think, after sunrise tomorrow. And after a kind of cool start back well into the 60s, probably low to mid 70s, I think, for tomorrow afternoon. But then look at what happens here on Thursday. Some rain on and off in the morning. And then by afternoon, look at that line of scattered storms rolling in. Could have some gusty winds with that as well as that comes through. That's going to be a cold front there. 47 degrees, another clear night on the way for tonight. One more mild and dry day tomorrow. 72 clouds increase later in the day. Rain, some PM storms on Thursday. 2 more days in the 70s. Really, the last nice one's going to be tomorrow. And then Friday, we're back in the 60s. Dry day on Saturday, 74. Ravens game not in town, but for Ravens parties, we'll have warmer temperatures and some scattered showers. And then look at that chill down. Monday, Tuesday, some scattered showers arrive. Tuesday, maybe into early Wednesday. And Tuesday into Wednesday, If we get enough of that cold air coming in from the upper atmosphere with some lake effect possibilities coming off the Great Lakes, there could be accumulating snow way up there towards the Great Lakes, New York, Pennsylvania. But around here, we've got a brand new weather article that we wrote about it. There could even be some wet flakes mixed in, maybe some small kind of soft-tail graupel mixed in as well Tuesday and Wednesday. It could be the first flakes potentially of the season. And I'm going to send you over to the FOX45 website, foxbaltimore.com. Do a search for that, and you can learn all about why we may see our first snow of the season coming up next week.
All right, Jonathan, thank you. Maryland Task Force 1 is home after helping people impacted by Hurricane Ian in Florida. The 45-member crew arrived in Montgomery County this afternoon. That group includes first responders from Howard and Montgomery counties and D.C. They spent 11 days performing water rescues, searching collapsed buildings, and identifying if other buildings were still habitable.
Thank these group of men and women that performed, flawlessly. Little sleep, tough conditions in terms of bunking and sleeping. And on top of that, also want to thank their families for supporting and maintaining the home front while their significant others were deployed for the last several weeks.
It's been a very trying time for these first responders. The team also went to Puerto Rico to assist in Hurricane Fiona recovery efforts last month. Still ahead, what's the plan if an asteroid is flying toward Earth? Call Morgan Freeman and Bruce Willis. No, that's not the plan. Why NASA scientists may be making progress on a solution along with some Maryland help. Here's a look at today's top trending stories. Number one, if you drive away from a gas station, you expect to make it a few miles after paying for gas, but that wasn't the case for a man at a Northern Virginia 7-Eleven.
I didn't even make it a mile down the road.
Well, the man who's asked to remain anonymous says water, not gas, came out of the pump the last time he filled up, causing nearly $1,500 in damage to his car.
They were kind of joking at the dealership that they thought that my kid was playing with the water hose and just hooked it directly to the tank. He had never seen so much water in a gas tank before.
Well, the day after his car broke down, the man says 7-Eleven put out-of-order bags over those gas pumps. The man says he reached out to 7-Eleven and was told the company's insurance department would get back to him. Mechanics say the truck may have delivered unusable gas, or it's possible a tank cap was left open when Hurricane Ian's remnants arrived, allowing rainwater into the tank. Number two, NASA now has a strong contingency plan for when an asteroid is hurling toward Earth, thanks to some help from local researchers. Johns Hopkins scientists teamed up with NASA for Operation DART, using spacecraft to knock an asteroid off its course. In a test run, the spacecraft attempted to push an asteroid off its orbiter of another asteroid, and the results came out better than expected. This mission marks the first one NASA has conducted with the purpose of planetary defense. Ready or not, college hoops on the horizon. The big changes to both programs in College Park. Well, that's all for us on the late edition. Thank you for watching. I'm Kai Jackson. Here's Morgan Atson with Sports Unlimited. Hi, Morgan.
Thank you so much, Kai. The Ravens officially placed their best player this season on defense on the injured reserve. Safety Marcus Williams, a free agent addition from March, who leads the team in interceptions with 3 and second in tackles. He's out for at least 4 games. Williams dislocated his wrist in the first quarter Sunday night, and the Ravens went over the Bengals to take the AFC North lead, believed to be on that play. He continued to play, though, until halftime. When Williams went out, Geno Stone stepped in to play with Chuck Clark. The Ravens will need a lot more from him, as well as rookie Kyle Hamilton, who they have buried at times.
I expect those guys to continue to grow and to play well. Both have their own styles, you know, and I think they're going to both play well for us, but they both got to step up and do a great job. And, of course, you know, Chuck as well. And we move a lot of guys in and out of that safety nickel spot, so we'll be moving guys around in there a lot. So I'm looking forward to all those guys kind of as a team, as a group, kind of filling in for Marcus and not losing a step on that.
Want to hear more on this? Download the Flock on Fox 45 podcast. Rocco and I break down the injury concerns and look ahead to the Giants. You can search Fox 45 on Apple, Spotify, and Amazon podcast platforms. On the local scene, Towson and Maryland are back on the future schedule. The Tigers and Terps will meet next season and in 2025, both in College Park, early September matchups. They last met in 17. Maryland won 63-17, and they've only played twice, believe it or not. It's that time of the year when you start to look at the calendar and realize college basketball is quickly approaching. With season openers in less than a month, major changes are ahead in College Park this upcoming season. Starting with the obvious, on the men's side, Kevin Willard taking over for the departed Mark Turgeon. We can judge the product later, of course, but Willard at least won this offseason by keeping a solid foundation with Dante Scott, Hakeem Hart, and Julian Reese, while landing local products back to the area via the transfer portal.
The thing I think this team's going to do at a very high level is shoot the basketball. 1 through 5 is going to be able to shoot the basketball at some point on the court. We're going to play. I think we have the ability to play a little bit more up tempo than I have in the past. I love the fact that this is everyone we brought in, everyone stayed, is a very unselfish player.
On the women's side, stability returns with head coach Brenda Freese, but she basically lost the roster. She's got Diamond Miller and Cheyenne Sellers coming back. The rest was lost through the transfer portal after the Sweet 16 and added 9 new faces for her 21st season.
Our team did a remarkable job, adding great additions like an Abby Myers here with the rest of the group that we brought in. And then you have the continuity of a Diamond Miller, who's been with our program, now a senior finally. So, just that blend, but obviously you lend to the experience. These 2 terrific seniors that we have looking for their leadership all season long to guide this team.
MLB postseason, all 4 division series underway today. The play in Game 1 between the Mariners and Astros. Yordan Alvarez smashed a walk-off game-winning 3-run homer with 2 outs to put Houston on top 8-7. Seattle blew a 4-run lead multiple times in the game. You can watch Game 2 of the NLDS between the Phillies and Braves tomorrow right here on Fox 45. First pitch is at 4:35. Philly took Game 1 today. That's all for Sports Unlimited tonight. I'm Morgan Adsett. Thanks for watching and have a great night.